we are going to move to, again, the news of the week that came down. First, it was Henrik Lundqvist on Friday afternoon that he retired from the NHL after 15 years. We have a whole video about this. We're just going to touch on that with a minute, for just about a minute. But Lundqvist recorded 20 wins or more for 13 consecutive, his first 13 seasons. I mean, and those numbers are ungodly. Look at those. Almost a 92% save percentage for 13 years. He won the 2012 Vezina Trophy, and
he was a hard finalist that year too. Yeah,
and as a matter of fact, I still think he should have won it, but I mean, I think it was Malkin that won it. So you got to say he stepped up. 130 playoff games, the most of any New York Ranger all time for from 2012 to 2015, 39 playoff wins, 93% save percentage, and a 205 goals against. And people think he sucks. Anyway, so I'm going to say this right now because I have my own quote ready to go. Henrik Lundqvist represented the New York Rangers in the best way every single day of his career. And I'm going to bring that quote back in a minute for another man. But John, just a quick thought on everything I just said with that.
The accuracy is uncanny. I mean, you hit it on the head of the nail. I mean, I said it on the video. There are three men that I could think of as Mr. Ranger, although one of them already really has the title.
More on him in a second.
Yeah, we'll talk about him in a second, but Henrik Lundqvist is one of those guys. The best goaltender of a generation, undoubtedly. The epitome of goaltending consistency. I mean, I don't think we've ever seen a run as great as Lundqvist's with as little help as he's had in front of him. No Norris winner, no Norris finalist, no Hart winner, no Hart finalist, one Hart finalist in front of him, and that was his last year in New York as a backup. So, I mean, he really wasn't the starter then anymore. He was kind of like, I guess, a platoon at that point. And
at best.
At best, yeah. With Georgiev, and then Shesterkin came in and took the starting job in January. So I would say that if Gorton and Sather built a proper team in front of him, or if you put him in Pittsburgh and switch places with someone like Marc-Andre Fleury, Henrik Lundqvist has 4 or 5 cups. Undoubtedly. He was an incredible goaltender. There's just not a bad thing you could say about the man. The man was a class act on and off the ice. He basically was the rebirth of this franchise, because the dark days, and all three of us remember the Rangers' dark days. I know all three of us do. But Henrik Lundqvist and Jaromir Jagr were really the rebirth. Henrik Lundqvist took over the reins when Jagr left and kept it going. So, congrats.
Go with you, and then I'll give one more thought, and then.
Yeah, kind of said it when we did our video when we retired. Even as an Islander fan, you got to admit that Lundqvist was absolutely fantastic. He was the face of the franchise. He was the face of the Rangers organization for pretty much his entire tenure there. He was a class. Seemed like he was a class act on and off the ice. And he was when it's all said and done, you talk about him as one of the goalies you got to watch when you were growing up, and how people back in the day talked about they got to see Ken Dryden. We got to see Henrik Lundqvist play. He was always on an elite level, and it's just I mean, listen, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm glad I haven't seen the Rangers win another cup since '94, but it's a shame that he didn't add a cup to his resume, because that's the only thing that was missing. But regardless of that, still a Hall of Famer in my book. And again, one of the best goalies to ever play the game. So kudos on him having a great career. And again, it's just sad that it had to end on, pretty much not his terms, because he was trying to come back and play this season, but his heart just wouldn't let him.
So then you take Henrik Lundqvist. You take a guy who is an all-time great. He's a Hall of Famer. He just doesn't have a cup on his resume. He did numerous charities, mostly with the Garden of Dreams, of course. Did charities in DC for the very brief time that he was there. Sort of like Adam Graves, who is another guy John would say is Mr. Ranger. He'd appear on Late Night with Jimmy Fallon out of nowhere and other late night programs. The guy was named People Magazine's 50 most beautiful people in his first season in the NHL. And the funny part is he's got a twin brother who they didn't name on there. And also he got to play against his twin brother, which nobody ever did in the history of the NHL. But there was another guy that did that before him. A guy who I got a lot more to say for his for my editorial later, but the Rangers lost Rod Gilbert, and it happened unfortunately during John's stream on Sunday night, where he was doing his hockey what ifs. By the way, that'll be a new series of ours. More on that later. It's sad because I don't know if I want to use juxtaposition or similarity, that these two men had the life-changing moments in a week, where Gilbert passes away, Lundqvist retires. I mean, if something happened to Brian Leetch, that's all the New York Rangers records. It's either Brian Leetch, Henrik Lundqvist, Rod Gilbert. John.
It's funny because you mentioned Brian Leetch, and Brian Leetch Sam and Joe joke around. He's literally almost the answer to every trivia question they have on TV. It's insane how many records that guy has. But Rod Gilbert was Mr. Ranger for a reason. He was called that. That was his nickname, and he earned that title. He was the personification of that organization. He was what it meant to be a New York Ranger. He was a guy who handled himself with the utmost grace and class. He was a charitable man who spent a ton of time in the community helping build up hockey, even in urban areas where there was no real attraction to hockey. He was trying to help grow the game there. He was with fans, and you would always see him around the Garden, and he always had a smile on his face. He was literally, I don't say this about many people, but he was one of those guys where you could say he was the light that would light up a room. It's sad, and we lost a legend. It's a big loss. It really is. And you know what? Father Time always wins. But Rod is more to this organization than he means more to this organization than I can even put into words. So I mean, we lost just a tremendous person, player, role model, upstanding citizen. Just sad. It really is. Sad day.
Anthony.
Yeah, he's in my eyes, one question of the greatest Ranger, to put on the blue sweater. As you just said, he led their team in goals. He was not, you guys are much more exposed to him than I was as an Islander fan, but every time you did see him on TV, he seemed like a very nice person, very happy-go-lucky person. Loved meeting people and fans, and loved talking about the game. So when you think of play organizations, best players of back in the day, you think of guys like when you think of the Montreal Canadiens, you think Guy Lafleur comes to mind, Jean Beliveau. When you think of the New York Rangers, Rod Gilbert comes to mind, and 80 years old, 80 years young, I should say. Seemed like for his age, he was still a young man. It's unfortunate that, he passed. But he'll live on with the Garden rafters for eternity, and Ranger fans can always, look up and see his number and think about everything he brought to the organization. But, Mark, before I hit it back to you, I also want to point out about the passing of Jimmy Hayes. We can't forget about that.
We're not going to forget about that. No.
That's listen, when anybody passed away, it's a shame. Gilbert was 80 years old, but Jimmy Hayes 31 years old. It's just absolutely gut wrenching. But Yeah, God bless them both.
First, actually, let me finish off with Gilbert first. It's a bit of a gut punch going from them announcing Henrik Lundqvist's name is going to go up in the rafters, and the first name that ever went up into the rafters leaves us right after that. It's just, it's almost like life has its sense of irony, but it's just, you know, the man lit up a room everywhere he went. And you know what, John, you're right. There's a reason why he's called Mr. Ranger. This is a guy that charity functions. If you were standing on a Long Island Railroad platform, you would hear his voice. He would be talking about the train safety. It's just, he was everywhere. I mean, I have friends of mine that went to fantasy camp and he was there, and they have stories that they love to tell about that. It's just, it's that old saying about, you know, the world lost a bright light and it just seems a little bit dimmer today. That's the way it feels.
Yeah.
Final thought on Gilbert, John.
Irreplaceable. Just one word that I can think of. It's irreplaceable.
And we were blessed to have him. I have the quote from him yesterday that I was a big city kid, and I lived in Montreal. I went all over the world and all over North America, and I really realized New York City is the greatest city in the world. And he treated us like it all the time, and always had a smile on his face, even on his worst day. So again, thank you, Rod. If you have other memories of Rod Gilbert, throw them down in the comments below. Don't forget to. It sounds like such an out of place thing right now, but you gotta like, share, subscribe. If you like that video, we got a lot more. So check out any of these that are right over here, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Your ideas are intriguing to me, and I wish to subscribe to your newsletter.